In America, even giants can vanish. Sears once built the nation's tallest tower, but now it clings to just 5 stores, and Playboy faded from icon to afterthought. Bill Maher names the next ghost brand, the Democratic Party, now facing 63% unfavorable ratings and losing the workers who once powered its rise. How did a political powerhouse collapse so fast, and can it survive what comes next? Sears once stood at the center of American life. The company did not just fill homes with appliances, it filled dreams with sprawling catalogs and shaped skylines, with the Sears Tower, the tallest building in the country, for decades. At its height, Sears controlled 41% of the appliance market and accounted for about 1% of the entire U.S. economy. 3,500 stores stretched across the nation, anchoring malls and main streets alike. But while Americans changed how they shopped, Sears clung to its old playbook. The rise of e-commerce was ignored in boardrooms, and the once mighty brand faded into bankruptcy and near oblivion. Today, only 5 stores remain, more relic than retail giant. For 66 years, the magazine shaped American culture, blending celebrity interviews with a brand that promised sophistication and rebellion. At its peak, Playboy was not just a magazine, it was an icon, a shorthand for a certain kind of cool. But as tastes changed and the internet upended media, Playboy's relevance evaporated. Print sales collapsed, the cultural conversation moved on, and what remains is little more than a logo and a website, a ghost of its former self. Bill Maher does not just drop these names for effect. He draws a direct line from these corporate collapses to the Democratic Party's current crisis. When once dominant institutions ignore the people they serve, trading on nostalgia instead of evolving, they risk becoming ghost brands, still visible but empty inside. In western Pennsylvania, the silence outside shuttered steel mills tells a story that numbers alone cannot capture. For decades, the Democratic Party was woven into the lives of workers here, men and women who clocked in before dawn, who trusted that someone in Washington understood what a missed paycheck meant. But as the party's focus shifted, those bonds began to fray. In 2016, Chuck Schumer predicted that losing blue-collar Democrats in places like Beaver County could be offset by gaining 2 suburban Republicans elsewhere. The results have been devastating. Factories closed, and families who once voted Democrat without question now feel abandoned. A lifelong steelworker summed it up. Democrats forgot about us. Trump talked paychecks. Desertion like that is not just local. Across the country, working-class voters watched as the party that once championed their struggles traded them for college-educated professionals and suburban moderates. Polls in 2024 captured the fallout. Democratic favorability was 63% unfavorable, the lowest in 35 years. The party's calculation that workers had nowhere else to go proved wrong. They found someone who spoke to their fears about jobs and economic security. The Democratic brand, once a promise, now feels like an empty label to millions who built its foundation. On a recent episode of Real Time, Bill Maher pressed Neil deGrasse Tyson for a simple answer. The subject was not black holes or quantum physics, it was whether separating sports by sex still makes sense. Maher pointed to a Scientific American article that claimed sex-based categories in sports are becoming obsolete, arguing that biology is a spectrum and that rigid divisions are outdated. Tyson, a celebrated astrophysicist and science communicator, hesitated. Instead of giving a straight answer, he waded into nuance and social context and refused to call the claim absurd. For Maher, this moment captured a deeper problem. When even the country's most famous scientist will not challenge an obviously fringe position, especially one rejected by hundreds of biologists in open letters, something vital is lost. The Scientific American piece, published in early 2021, became a lightning rod. It argued that sex is not a binary and that performance differences in sports are better explained by training or genetics than by male and female categories. The backlash was immediate and fierce. Over 300 biologists and geneticists signed a letter rebuking the article, calling it a distortion of basic science. Critics from across the scientific spectrum accused the magazine of abandoning evidence for activism and warned that such positions undermine trust in both science and policy. Maher's exchange with Tyson was not just about sports. It was about credibility. If respected voices in science and culture will not push back against ideas that most people see as extreme, how can the public trust the party associated with those voices? The refusal to confront fringe claims, Maher argued, leaves mainstream Democrats looking timid and unmoored from reality. For voters already uncertain about the party's direction, this kind of hesitation is more than a minor slip. It is a warning sign that the party's grip on factual authority is slipping away. Democratic leaders have perfected the art of avoidance. Invitations to appear on Real Time with Bill Maher, a show hosted by someone who openly supported and voted for them, are met with a wall of silence. Hillary Clinton never once accepted. Kamala Harris declined repeatedly. Barack Obama made just a single appearance years after leaving the White House, and only after a relentless campaign from viewers and the host himself. Maher has said it took 8 years and a petition just to get that one booking. This is not about ducking hostile territory. These are leaders who decline to face questions from a sympathetic audience on a platform that has challenged but also championed their causes. The pattern is not limited to Maher's show. Top Democrats increasingly stick to scripted interviews, friendly podcasts, or carefully managed rallies. The risk of an UN-scripted moment, one where they might have to defend their record or respond to a tough question about party direction, seems too great. Each refusal shrinks their reach. When the party's most prominent figures will not engage, it sends a message. The message is not ready for scrutiny. Voters notice. The result is a vacuum, one that opponents are all too happy to fill. The more Democrats hide from real conversations, the easier it becomes for critics to paint them as disconnected and afraid. In a media landscape that rewards authenticity, this kind of evasion is not just tactical, it is self-sabotage. Donald Trump's campaign did not stick to old positions when the political winds changed. In 2020, he signed an executive order to ban TikTok, a move that angered millions of young voters. By 2024, he reversed course, promising to protect the app and calling it a symbol of free speech. Polls after the reversal showed Trump's support among voters aged 18 to 29 rise by 11 points, according to the Harvard Youth Poll. The shift was not limited to social media. In his first term, Trump dismissed cryptocurrency as a scam. 4 years later, he embraced it, accepting campaign funds and digital coins, and branding himself as the candidate for crypto innovation. On marijuana, Maher had warned Democrats that Republicans might seize the issue. Trump began talking openly about reclassifying marijuana at the federal level, while Democratic leaders hesitated. Even in Silicon Valley, once a Democratic stronghold, tech executives took notice of Trump's promises to roll back regulation. Each pivot targeted a different group, but together, they built a coalition that Democrats once considered unbreakable. Maher doesn't just diagnose the problem, he lays out a survival plan. He points to companies like Kodak and Blockbuster, once towering brands that refused to adapt and ended up as cautionary tales. But he also spotlights what works. Listen to your customers, fix what is broken, and move fast when the world changes. For Democrats, that means focusing on the issues people feel at home, like the cost of groceries, rising rent, and the hassle of everyday life. These are the daily concerns that voters live with. Maher calls for fewer lectures and more action on things like gas prices, utility bills, and basic services. He urges a 4-step approach: cut out the fringe, show up for UN-scripted conversations, deliver real results on daily headaches. Stop letting nostalgia guide strategy. Silicon Valley responded to Trump's promise of deregulation not because of party loyalty, but because he offered a clear path to growth. The warning is simple: adapt, or risk the fate of brands that vanished from American life. Today, Democratic favorability sits at its lowest point in 35 years. As parties ignore real conversations and daily struggles, voters look elsewhere. Survival demands change, not nostalgia. In politics, brands that stop listening do not fade quietly. They vanish. What matters now is who adapts before it is too late.